Hello, Carl here with Sustainability Theory News. We got 5 different stories for you, and we're starting out at onezoom.org. It's a visualization of the tree of life, basically all life, all species, broken down into their, individual families and whatnot. I don't know all the correct terminology, but I came across this through a permaculture thread on Reddit where a person there, poster, said, "Hey, I got these types of plants on my property. Maybe plants in the similar family will thrive in the conditions that I have." And I thought, hey, that's great. I'm going to check out something that I have, which is some goosefoot, also known as wild spinach, at least the common goosefoot. Lamb's quarter is another name for it. And inside this family is quinoa. Now, you have to zoom in deep, and you can see the breakdown off of this branch of the family. And quinoa's down here, near the end. It's a specialty crop. But let's search for something else, which I thought it would be in this family. Turns out it's actually not. Well, actually, it's close. Amaranth. Searching, buffering. Let's go to Amaranth, and it'll zoom out automatically. Kind of far from the goosefoots, but still pretty closely related. And I got some wild amaranth growing, but I also have some seeds for some good amaranth for grains. I'm going to plant some next year. I planted some this season, but it was a little too late, didn't produce a grain. But I also have a lot of goldenrod on the property. So let's search here, click here, and the goldenrod family is actually incredibly far. And as you can see the visualization, it zooms out and then zooms in into the daisy family, all sorts of different coneflowers like echinacea, and really, really deep, the aster families. And you're finally arrived into the goldenrods, the horseweeds, that sort of thing. Way, way down. As you can see, it's a pretty interesting, visualization of the tree of life. I thought you might find that interesting. And if you have certain crops or certain plants growing on your property, check it out. Maybe you'll find something similar that you want to grow. With goldenrod, I am going to be growing some more flowers, echinacea. I got some seeds for that. And asters. And flowers are a decent crop to sell. Not necessarily for food, but cut flowers, potted flowers, that sort of thing. All right, so let's go to our next story. At hobbyfarms.com, they're talking about how to naturally cool your root cellar in the summer with winter's ice. One of my earliest memories is going to visit Thomas Jefferson's home, Monticello, over in, I think, Charlottesville, Virginia. He had this huge pit, at least when I was a little kid, 3 years old or whatnot. It seemed huge. Turns out it was about 10, 12 feet deep. And they cut big chunks of ice out of ponds in the winter and put them down in this big ice well, basically, and it kept the ice relatively cool and solid throughout the summer. Now, this is an idea of using a similar approach for a root cellar. Root cellars are partially buried underground and uses the natural heat in the wintertime to keep root vegetables mostly from freezing and then thus spoiling through the freeze-thaw cycle. But you can get big blocks of ice, and the author recommends using Rubbermaid totes. You could use 5-gallon buckets, storage totes, or any sort of water type material that can hold about 6 inches, 8, 10 inches of material. You don't want to go too thick because it'll take a lot longer to freeze solid. The thinner the better. He's in Canada, the author here, and in Canada they get mighty cold, so it's pretty easy to make ice. If you're in a little bit warmer climate where the temperature just drops barely below freezing, you might want to consider, hey, if you got a bunch of buckets laying around, 2 inches of ice will freeze pretty quickly below freezing. I think it takes about 3 days to go solid for 3 inches in a bucket, 4 inches in a bucket. Depends on the conditions. All right, so let's go to the next story. We're at foodtank.com. Farmers fight for the right to repair their own equipment. Right to repair, it's a pretty contentious issue. To me, it seems common sense. You buy a piece of equipment, a machine, or a cell phone, you should have the right to repair it. If it breaks down, replace some pieces on it. But under their copyright laws, the cell phone manufacturers, tractor manufacturers say, hey, you're actually basically leasing the stuff. You're agreeing to our user agreement, and, we have the right to repair, not you. So you have to use our diagnostic software, for example, to figure out what problems are happening on your $300,000 or $500,000 combine. When really it's just one little sensor just keeps tripping off, but you would need to pay to have a service tech come out or pay ridiculous fees to have them diagnose it from the cloud. Well, lots of problems arise, of course, but some questions we should probably ask ourselves. Have farm machines become too big and complicated? Are there too few manufacturers of farm equipment because they've become so big and complicated? Are there ways to, accomplish similar tasks on a smaller scale? I believe that smaller scale farms are more productive per acre, and some of the stats show it. But equipment, it's still made by some of the big manufacturers. I myself have a Kubota tractor, and I don't think I can make a machine myself in my garage that's comparable. But who knows, maybe one day. What are your thoughts on it? Do you believe that farmers should have the unequivocal right to have software, access to that software, and if they have the property, they own that piece of property? Property rights are a part of it according to the Repair Association, which seems like the organization that wrote the press release that Food Tank talked about. Now we're over at Wallace's Farmer. It talks about cover crops for flooded land. Now, cover crops can be great for a lot of things. Using a clover, a vetch, or I believe alfalfa, it can help put nitrogen from the atmosphere into the soil, because legumes they have some sort of symbiotic relationship with the bacteria. Forget the name. They create nodules on their roots and take nitrogen from our atmosphere, which is like 70% nitrogen, and puts it in the soil for that plant and other plants around it to utilize. But they also can help prevent erosion and weed seeds from coming up if the topsoil is eroded away, or weed seeds coming in from the river or creek overflowing. So cover crops have a lot of benefits for maintaining and in fact building soil integrity. But they can also provide a value add to farmers. For example, on a larger scale, a farmer might grow a lot of corn and soybeans to feed animals. Well, if they do have a livestock operation, they could cover crop in some oats or some rye in between, or in fact with certain crops. And they could use oats or rye, even a sudan grass, as a feed, a fodder, or a silage, depending on the type of animal and the type of crop that you grow. So you're protecting your land, you're actually building stronger soils, and you have a potential value add, something you could either sell or feed to your own animals. Well, win-win-win situation there. Of course, cover crops aren't the easiest thing to work with, and every single one of them is different, and your conditions, the soil type, it might not be very beneficial for you, but in some conditions it can be extremely beneficial, especially in terms of soil restoration. All right, last story. We're back at Food Tank, and they are talking about a Danish study about creating safer camel milk products. Camel milk is comparable to, say a cow's milk in terms of nutrition. In fact, I've heard it has higher levels of vitamin C and lots of different vitamins in it. But foodborne illnesses, they're a pretty serious issue. And they usually happen through what the author describes as spontaneous fermentation. And that's basically when something goes sour, goes bad. Fermentation is used to create pickles, to create yogurt, that sort of thing. But if it's spontaneous, it's fermenting with bad types of bacteria or fungus, basically. So these researchers in Denmark, University of Copenhagen, they created found a lactic acid, rather, that when they inoculate the milk product up front, then the lactic acid kind of spreads. It's a starter culture for fermentation, and it has natural antimicrobial properties. Here's the study itself. I'm not even going to try to pronounce some of these names of the bacteria that it protects from, but it's also found in both raw and pasteurized camel milk. So it's a better product overall. And a lot of people claim there's great benefits to eating fermented foods, especially if they're fermented with good lactic acids or good beneficial microbes. So I'm going to link to all these articles in the description. If you like what you've heard and seen so far, hit the like button. If you don't like it, leave a comment below. Tell me why. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of this, and let me know if you have any ideas for future videos. Have a great day.